Good morning, PT on Ice. It is Monday. My name is Mike Eisenhart. I am your lead for the APHPT track of courses. It's a little early this morning, about 15 minutes ahead of the game. As I mentioned last week, I am on a bit of a summer schedule for these next few weeks, and that means that last week I was behind by 15 minutes. This week I'm ahead by 15 minutes. Apologies to the faithful listeners and those who might be trying to scramble to get on. Unfortunately, it's just not going to work for me for a couple of weeks here at 8:30, so had to try it early this week. Did it late last week. So welcome. Hey, Mark, good to see you. I'm going to go ahead and start my clock if I can. And away we go. Okay, perfect. So today I'm going to talk about, I think, what's kind of a tough topic, to be honest with you, but it's been popping up for me in the last couple of days and weeks, and definitely over this weekend, and I just felt like it needed to be addressed at some level, and I guess I should give the context of where this comes from for me. I don't consider myself, and I think those who know me well, don't consider me to be like a big touchy-feely kind of guy. Like maybe a little sensory defensive. I tend to sort of keep arm's length, just about anything that requires contact. But I come from kind of a family that I think is probably, on the end of very, passionate, and, we tend to be very, committed and excitable and excited in everything that we do. And so in these last few weeks, I've been sort of watching and paying attention to, the context of emotion in a lot of what we do. And not just as a family, but as a team, as a profession. And I think the reason why is because I've got a couple of different forces in my life that kind of poke at this. I mean, obviously, the people who are close to me this is always a factor. But I've been reading a couple of books lately that I think draw this out a little bit. And some tips from different colleagues and friends. Had a recent conversation last week, that got into sort of where does love of another person fit into this whole thing, and that I think kind of drew it out. Even in formal religion, yesterday in church, they talked about sort of loving your neighbor, and so that was kind of on my mind. And then this weekend, I had some stuff with my kids that required me to sort of change direction very quickly and sort of snap into action at a time that I wasn't expecting to, and then reflecting on that. So it made me think a lot, and it made me think a lot because I think that we need to consider this as, is this a driver for what we do? Maybe the easiest way to grab onto this is, the question that we sometimes ask, and I know I've posed it here before. What would you do every day if money wasn't an object? If material wealth, if you were kind of covered already, if let's say you inherited something or like wherever you lived, like money wasn't of any value, what would you do? Would you be a therapist? Would you try to be in the healing space? Would you, do something else with your time? What would you actually do to keep yourself busy if you didn't have to worry about day-to-day responsibilities? And of course, the reason why that's an easy and accessible question is because it gets kind of a little closer to the heart of what drives you, without all the noise of life, all of those things that we have to do, but the noise of life that kind of gets in our way often. So for me, that's always a question, because I think that that's always the kind of touch point, the touchstone of, am I living my purpose? Am I staying on track and finding ways to do what I think I'm here to do, and of course make enough money to survive while doing it? Or am I kind of in this space where it's really, to me, just about, making ends meet and getting through the day? And I think that's a trap that we all can get in and live in and be in for a while, and maybe, we don't think of it before college, and we hopefully don't think of it after retirement, but the bulk of our life is spent at a time where we put it on a shelf, we put it to the side, and we maybe don't address it. And if you take that concept and that question and you boil it down, it gets at some level for everybody to truly about this idea of, do you have some love in your life, and do you honor that with your life, with what you do? On your headstone, are they going to say something that relates back to what your real purpose is? And I think the reason why I bring that up is because, in my mind at least, healthcare people, really are at some level called to love the person next to them, love the common man, love the common woman, find a way to lay on the line and sacrifice for your colleague, your coworker, your neighbor, your friend, your whatever. And I think that calling is kind of deep. And yet when we have the conversations about changing health and about, sort of changing, groups and populations and societies, it often goes back to money. It almost always goes back to, but yeah, how do I afford to do that? How can I turn that into a business? And it's easy to sort of look down on the purpose side of this and say, oh, well, that's nice. It's a nice idea, but, I live here in the real world and I have to actually be able to make ends meet. And I wonder about that because, I think we've created this kind of scenario where we're almost willing to do the either or. On this channel a lot, people talk about both and. They talk about like not this or that, but this and that. And I wonder sometimes if people are really living that, and if we're finding ways to live that. Are we willing to say, hey, look, I'm going to do a little something to try to take a baby step forward because that is where my heart is. That's where my soul needs to be. That's what refreshes me. That's what allows me to push forward tomorrow into the hard stuff, the stuff that I know doesn't sit right, so that I can go do those things that I know will eventually get me where I want to be, will help me make the progress I want. And that doesn't have to be profession. I think that's part of the important part. I see so many people who truly what they really want to do is they want to put their time into their family. They want to raise their kids right, or they want to, be with their, their spouse, or they want to go and travel the world. And somehow that feels wrong to them because it doesn't feel like it's a good enough purpose, or it's about materialism. And then I think there's something missed there. One of the things that kind of brought this up is I'm watching, so in Free the Yoke and Summer Move, we've authored all these challenges this year, and people are doing all sorts of wacky things. But the ones that I'm finding really, really interesting are the ones that don't have anything to do with really hard physicality. There's one that we call Just Be, where people are literally having to sit still and just be. And to watch that is fascinating. People are putting their posts up and their pictures up, and so many people have said, this is really hard. To shut down in life and just be with my own thoughts. Like, that was really hard. To cut the distractions out. There's another one where we made people dance, and you could just see the joy on their faces as they did something that was goofy and silly. And most people said, oh, this is out of my comfort zone. I feel sort of weird. But people got into it and had fun with it. And there was joy there. There was some sort of love there. I think that when we really look at it, when we're afraid to say it. We're afraid to talk about it. It feels weird. But, when we talk about empathy, and we talk about, expectations, and we talk about connections with other people, right? Like at the essence of connect, like that is connect. And yet the science has clearly shown multiple times that connect drives health. We know that communities make a difference. And yet we're afraid or unwilling to simply say it's because there's love of another human. And as humans, we have to have that. Like it's part of biologically who we are. And we can make it sound sort of mechanical or biological or scientific and talk about, the fact that we're built for tribes. But at some level, it still comes back to the question of, are we doing it with love? Are we willing to sort of go the extra mile for the human next to us? Are we willing to lay ourselves down and sacrifice out of love? And if we do, if we're willing to do that, if we're willing to invite someone into our home, if we're willing to, take a walk with somebody who needs it, if we're willing to be patient and listen to the client in front of us who really just wants to get out their version of the story, if we're willing to do those things, we're truly doing this out of a place of love, and then all of our outcomes are better, right? And I don't know why that shocks us, but it does. We say, can you believe it? That when that person felt cared about, they did better. They were more compliant, and they did their exercises, and their outcome was better. And you'd be shocked how good I am with back pain when a person believes I'm going to help them. What is the root of all of that? The root of all of that is that it comes from a place of love. So, I don't have a ton of time here, but I do want to just sort of mention, I had a little bit of, of this, I don't know what I would call it. Like, I can't really call it like a proud papa moment because I'm not the papa anymore. But this past weekend, we're sending Pat off. Pat McSweeney has been with us now for 6 months. He's wrapping up his residency with us. And just to kind of put this in perspective, he's been living here in Clinton, New Jersey, and like, immersed in the proactivity culture. Left his new spouse of only a couple of months to spend the bulk of his last 6 months with us, because he felt like there was some sort of calling in what we do, which is amazing. So we had our little going away party for him on Saturday, and my partner Justin hosted this barbecue, and it was a great time. But the thing that was the coolest for me was sitting back now after almost 21 years and looking at the team and just watching the dynamic. There were literally 4 generations of people all in one place. My parents were there, because as some people know, my dad was one of the original Proactivity partners and is now kind of a silent partner. So he was there, and then of course my generation was there, and then from there there were kids there. So 3 generations. There were no great grandkids and there were no great grandparents, but it was really, really cool to watch and see. And all of that, I think, comes down to the fact of like, it was genuine. It was out of love. It was like people weren't talking about, little tiny details. They were talking about just kind of big picture, cool experiences and being together. And I just wonder, can we take that and can we use that as a clinical, tool? Because I think the minute that we do, and the minute that we're willing to admit that's what we're doing, we're going to get somewhere. I'll wrap it up with this. Yesterday, I went down to my mother and stepfather-in-laws and celebrated some birthdays, and they were telling me, they've kind of got this therapist that they work with down there, a PT, and they really, really like this guy. And every time I go down there, they give me the report, like how are things going and where are things at. And you could just, listening to my mother-in-law tell me about how much of an impact this person has made on their lives. It was huge. I want to go back and I want to thank that guy. And I want to say, hey, you're clearly doing this. Obviously, it's paying your bills. Obviously, it's putting food on the table. But at the end of the day, you're treating these people with such kindness, with such love, that it is making an impact on the quality of their life. And I think that we can do the same thing. And I think that there's a certain, like a willingness we have to say, that's where I'm coming from today. I'm coming from a place of love. I want to see you be your best. I want to see society better. I want to see our country thrive. I want to see the world thrive. I want to see the earth left here for the next generation. And if we're willing to do that and we're willing to say, okay, what can I do today? What doesn't take money? What does materialism what do I not worry about here? What can I do to take one baby step forward toward that? Starting from a place of love, I think we'll be surprised how far we can get. So I don't think there's an assignment there. There's nothing to do. But all I would say is that if you're willing to take that time and just kind of say, what can I do today from that place for someone in my life, and then just mark it down and watch what it does. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it empathy. You can call it expectations. You can call it whatever you want. At the end of the day, if you're starting from a place of love and you're willing to stay with that, I think we're going to see everything improve. So that's the challenge for this week. It's only Monday. It's not an easy challenge. It is not an easy challenge, especially for people like me. I will tell you, it is a incredibly difficult challenge to stay centered on the real why and then go forward with something. But be willing to talk about it and just see where it goes. I would love, I don't ask for it very often, but I would love anyone who reads this or sees this or listens to it or whatever, has some kind of connection to this message. I would love to hear how it goes. If you're willing, drop a comment in, send me an email, mikeeisenhart@gmail.com. You can send me an email on that email account anytime. Send me a tweet, a direct message, whatever. But if you're willing to start that, if you're willing to take that little challenge, of all the physical challenges I've authored for this summer, if you're willing to take that challenge and try to apply it, I would love to hear how it goes. All right. I think that's enough. 12 minutes and 44 seconds is probably enough to beat on this topic for today. For those of you in life who I've had that opportunity, who clearly have shown me that love, who every time I'm a jerk or tough or say something stupid, and you still come back and want to be my friend at some level, I appreciate that. Kudos to you. You're definitely a part of that story for me. For everybody else, maybe someday we'll have one of those experiences and see where it goes. I certainly say enough dumb things. Just look around and one of them probably will offend you. And if you can come back and say, yeah, like, I got it, I still love you, then we're on the right track. Have a good rest of the day. It's only Monday. Start from the place in your heart. Imagine what you could do if the barriers of financial and material stuff wasn't in your way. You could make change. It's only Monday. Make it count.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.